If you've been told your bloating, IBS, or hormone issues are normal, this episode might change everything. Today, we're talking about parasites, gut testing, and why detox trends can actually make symptoms worse. If you've tried all the right things and still don't feel well, this episode is for you. Welcome to Faith Over Pharma, the podcast for women who want a different way to heal. I'm Susan Gladstein, holistic health practitioner and functional nutrition specialist, and here we explore faith-led, holistic approaches to hormones, energy, and symptoms that just keep getting brushed off. If that's you, you're in the right place. Before we jump into this incredible episode, I want to share about something that's honestly one of my favorite things I do all year. This summer, July 27th through August 1st, I'm hosting the Rooted Reset Retreat in Costa Rica. It's a faith-led, fully supported week with amazing food, real downtime for massages, reading a good book, exploring the jungle, and yes, spontaneous dance parties are absolutely a thing. And with Valentine's Day coming up, this is such a good thing to ask for. Time away so you can come home feeling like yourself again. And if the idea of someone else cooking incredible meals, a beach trip where you don't have to plan a single thing, or watching toucans and sloths sounds dreamy to you, come join us. You can snag one of the last remaining rooms at susangladstein.com/retreat. Today's guest is someone I'm really excited to bring on because her story is one that I think a lot of you will recognize in yourself. She's a functional medicine doctor who spent nearly a decade dealing with chronic gut issues, bloating, constipation, reflux, all of the things that kind of get brushed off as just normal, or maybe that's just how your body is. I know that was my mantra, if you will, for a while. But then she found the real root cause. It was a massive parasite infection that had been missed for years. But instead of stopping there, Dr. Kate Davis turned her own healing journey into her mission. And now she's helped hundreds of women finally get answers, not just symptom relief, but by addressing gut health at the root, which I absolutely love. And I'm so excited that you're here. But before we kind of get into the gut hormone connection, because that is a thing that we should really talk about, can you just share a little bit more about your own journey, what you were experiencing, and what finally made you realize that something deeper was going on?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Susan. I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, I mean, I got into functional medicine because of my own, journey, with chronic constipation and bloating issues. I actually went 13 days without a single bowel movement when all this first started, and nothing medical doctors offered me helped. I was given two terrible options. I went to the GI doctor like we're supposed to do, when you get gut issues, and all he offered me was, hey, we can give you a drug that, has a permanent side effect of facial twitches. And I was like, no, I'm good. What else do you got, doctor? And he was like, or we can remove your intestines. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm going to go find someone else. Never went back and saw that doctor. And, I was so blessed to be able to find someone who did myofascial release in the abdomen. And, I went to go see him once. And I swear I lost like 10 pounds that night. I mean, it was such a relief to be able to go to the bathroom again. If anyone on here is listening and who's dealt with, severe constipation like that before, it is so uncomfortable. Like I couldn't even sit up straight in class because my gut was so uncomfortable and I was so bloated and, just really miserable. And it didn't make any sense. I was 24, I was young, I was healthy, I was a former D1 athlete. Like if you looked at me from the outside, you would wonder to yourself, why the heck is she so sick? It just didn't make any sense. And so, that's why I'm so passionate about helping people with gut issues, because I remember being there. I remember wondering, like, am I dying? Like, what is going on? Like, this is not normal for a 24-year-old to be dealing with this. And, being scared and not knowing what to do and not knowing that there were alternative, therapies out there that could help. Because even though I went to chiropractic school, I was very, very Western medicine when I went into it. And so I thought like a lot of the stuff they talked about in chiropractic school was crazy. And, because I was pre-med all through undergrad. And so it's all about science and research. And, this is just the way science or medicine is. And you always go to a doctor and do drugs and surgery and all that stuff. But, after I saw that doctor, I completely overhauled my diet. And, as long as I stuck to a really strict paleo, dairy-free, gluten-free diet, I was completely fine. But anytime I strayed off of that, anytime I ate a little bit of gluten or even a gluten-free pizza or something like that, I just felt miserable for 5 days. Like I was bloated, constipated, acid reflux, you name it. And it was so frustrating because I was doing all the right stuff. All the stuff people tell you, like take a probiotic, change your diet, like add in a bunch of supplements to heal your gut, and none of it was helping. As soon as I would go off that diet, my immune system would immediately react to the food that I was eating. And it's so frustrating because, that's the only thing people know is, oh, I just got to clean up my food, which is super important. But if your body's not functioning the way it should, it's not really going to do you much good. If you can't absorb the nutrients you're putting in your body, if you can't digest your food properly and break it down to be absorbed, it doesn't matter what the heck you're putting in your system. It's not going to go in anywhere that it needs to. And, so I dealt with that for almost a decade and I had a really stressful life event. I know you probably talked about this on your podcast several times about how stress can really just throw your health into chaos. And, that is a big thing that affects hormones too, which I'm sure you've chatted about quite a bit on your podcast. But I had a really stressful life event and all my symptoms came back. Even though I was on the strict diet, I was doing all the right stuff. I was trying to sleep, I was trying to meditate and breathe and do all the things that people tell you to do. But my symptoms they came back and they were worse than they were when I was 24. I was on the verge of an autoimmune disease. My knee would swell up randomly. I'd get random joint pains like every day in a different area. And it was just, I was kind of at a loss. I didn't know what to do. And, God is so good. I feel like he always puts people in your life at the right time. But I had a friend because I live in California and all my friends and family are back on the East Coast, but she just happened to be visiting San Diego when I was going through all this. And we went to school together. She's a functional medicine doctor. And she was like, Kate, let's do some testing. Let's see what's going on. I'm pretty sure you have parasites or Lyme disease or both. And so the testing revealed a massive parasite infection. And this is something I tell people too. I had done several stool tests. They never showed parasites, but I had hundreds of these come out. I had a big 3 foot one. After I passed the 3 footer, it was huge. But after I passed that, all my symptoms started going away. I felt 100% better after 4 months of working with her. And I was able to eat gluten and dairy again for the first time in almost a decade. And, since that experience, I've been able to help, hundreds of women heal from chronic gut issues.
My gosh, I get asked a lot about that, like in the fertility sense, a lot of people will come to me and they've done all the right things and it's still not working. And I personally have kind of gone through a similar thing where, I thought I was doing all the right things and I was just like inflamed. And I honestly didn't realize how bad I felt until I felt good. But the other thing was, I was trying to do all these quote unquote healthy things and I was eating the protein shakes and the bars, but the artificial sweeteners in them, I already had gut issues, but it just like made it so much worse. But I just kind of had accepted that that was, you know, how it was. And, here I am doing something healthy for my body. And, going to the squat rack and feeling like you're going to crap yourself is not the best feeling. But that was just something that I had kind of brushed off as my norm. And I'd always struggled with migraines and didn't really realize that the foods that I was eating, the health foods, were just making things worse. And so once I got into reading ingredients and understanding that the chemical sugars that make things, sugar-free or healthy or whatever the packaging is that they put on there is not the greatest. When I caught that out, it was like night and day difference in how I felt. And then it took a while, obviously, after years of having, just an inflamed gut to get things going in the right direction and healing. But to your point about the stool test, so that was actually a very eye-opening thing for me that I did right before I got pregnant. I had done one because I was like it's just still inflamed. I was eating right, but still not feeling great. And discovered that things that I ate on the regular, like tomatoes, for example, I love them, eat them every single day. The test was like, yeah, based off of your microbiome, you probably should avoid these. And I was like, oh my gosh, like here I've been just fueling the fire
Yeah.
this whole time. So for me, doing the test was eye-opening, but even my sister-in-law was asking me about that. And parasites, do you think I have parasites and whatever? And that's what I was explaining to her. Like your standard stool test is not going to tell you that. You have to go and do something very specific.
Nope.
And she's in New York, so that's a whole other, there aren't a lot of like mail-in things that you can do in New York compared to
No,
like here
people
in
get
Arizona.
yeah, people get so mad. Like, I have so many New Yorkers who are like, why can't you work with me? And I'm like, talk to your government. They don't let us work with you. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what to tell you.
Yeah. So, but I think it is a conversation. Well, it should be had, and I don't know, maybe it's a little bit more mainstream, but I would definitely like to talk about how common are parasites really, and when should someone actually consider testing instead of just assuming maybe everything is a parasite, you know?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question because it's such a popular like mainstream thing nowadays. Oh, I'm just gonna do a parasite cleanse. And I have so many videos on my page that talk about this because it drives me nuts because I have to fix all these people who've tried, a heavy metal cleanse or a parasite detox because they think that that's the only thing that exists that you need to remove from your body. But I always tell people like number one, if you're not even getting testing to see what's going on and like working with someone who can take your health history, your symptoms, and your test results and put it together and come up with, okay, this is what I think is going on and here's how to fix it. You're either just guessing, so you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping it sticks, or and you're just wasting a bunch of money in the process, or you're going to make yourself worse because a huge, huge thing that people don't realize is if when you kill off parasites with herbs and all those binders that people take to get them out of their system, they have what's called die-off symptoms. They release a bunch of toxic waste into your body as they die. It's like their last breath of, well, if you're gonna kill me off, I'm gonna try to kill you on my way out. And so people don't realize that about parasites, but they're nasty little critters and they will do that. And so your three main organs that remove toxic waste from your body and waste products in general that you produce on a daily basis are number one, your gut, your gallbladder, and your liver. So if you don't have a gallbladder, I mean, it's still you can still detox. It's just you got to be a little more careful. But if you don't have a gallbladder, if you have liver issues that don't show up on blood work, by the way, you guys, like if you have normal liver enzymes, you can still have fatty liver, just so you know. And if you have leaky gut and those toxins are just recirculating back into your bloodstream, putting more stress on your liver, you're gonna get a really terrible detox reaction. And I've seen this with probably about 10% of people I work with are people who reach out to me on Instagram are like, hey, I wish I'd seen your post like a year ago before I tried this detox, but now I'm really messed up. Can you fix me? And it's because they didn't realize that you have to heal those organs first before just dumping a bunch of systemic toxins from your system into a system that's already plugged up. Because if you have a clogged toilet, you're not going to continue using the toilet until it's unclogged. And that's the same way with your body is like it's not going to try to shove more toxic waste out of your gut if your gut is already in a toxic state. It's going to use your skin, it's going to use your kidneys, it's going to use your respiratory system or your sinuses. So people who are just like, yeah, I tried this, this detox and I ended up with flu symptoms or I ended up with severe stomach pain or liver pain or migraines, headaches, all that stuff. It's because there was nowhere for those toxins to go. And so they just recirculated and got settled somewhere else in the body. And so um that's what I'll say about parasite cleanses is get testing them because there's also co-infections like mold toxicity, like fungal overgrowth that allow parasites to continue replicating in your body. There's all these things that just put a hamper on your immune system that prevent it from actually being able to naturally get these parasites out. Because yes, you should be able to eat sushi, kill off the parasite naturally because you have a good solid immune system, good stomach acid, good bile salts, digesting and breaking down all that stuff in your food. And you should be able to get it out of your system without any problem because yes, we do have detox abilities, but it's when those organ systems break down, that's when it becomes a problem. And so you also have to look at, is there a co-infection? Because if you just go after parasites, if you're just looking at this tiny little view of your overall health, but you also have fungus and you also have heavy metals and you also have chemicals in your system and a bad liver function, you're not going to feel better or you're going to get a lot worse. And so you've got to look at the whole picture because if you don't remove everything at once, you're just creating an environment for all that stuff to grow back. And so that's when I see people who are like, yeah, I've done parasite cleanses in the past. I saw a ton of parasites come out and I still see them come out. And I'm like, "What, did you test for anything else?" They're like, "Oh no, I never did testing." And I'm like, "Well, there's your number one problem, you guys. Like if you have things that are constantly damaging your organs, suppressing your immune system, preventing your body from healing naturally, because God designed our bodies to heal like insanely well. The fact that we're not all just bent over in chronic pain and disease all the time is pretty phenomenal. Like the more you learn about the human body, the more you realize how resilient our bodies really are. But those are things you really have to look for. And as far as your question on how common are they, I would say, I mean, granted, I do work with gut issues, so they're a lot more common with gut issues. I see them in probably about 75% of people I work with. And a lot of people have never left the country. So it's not just we're taught in, in med school, pre-med, whatever education you have that, oh, parasites don't exist in America. And I'm just like, they don't just stop at the US Mexico border and say, oh, we can't go in, there's the wall, we're just stuck here. Let's go back south. It's like that's not realistic. You get them from your pets, you get them from sushi and fish and even water supplies that aren't really being treated the way they should. Like, look at Flint, Michigan. Everyone's like, oh, our water in America is great. I'm like, not so much there or in other parts of the country. I mean, it's not as good as, maybe where you and I are at. And so there's all these ways you can get parasites. It's not just leaving the country and going to South America or Asia. And, moms can also pass parasites through the placenta into their growing kid, which is why I always recommend, if people are like, hey, my husband and I want to get pregnant. We're, a little bit older, like late 30s, 40s. So we want to get started right away. And I'll ask them, a couple questions and they'll, they have these health issues going on. I'm like, hey, look, this is something to consider. If you get pregnant and you haven't dealt with all the toxins, all the infections in your body, that could affect your developing fetus. You're already in an age where, it's not to say it's not possible, but it is harder, at that age to really get pregnant. Maybe we should do some sort of treatment before so that you have a lot more success and your kid is healthier, on the back end of it.
Man, first of all, I love your analogy about the toilet because it just makes it very clear. I always have people coming to me, they're like, well, what supplement should I take to improve, sperm health, egg quality, whatever. And my thing is, I never blanket recommend supplements because I don't know your history, like what's going on with your gut from the full picture. So, yes, I'm very much in alignment that you need someone who's going to be able to tell you from the big picture what's going to work best for you. And I also appreciate the thinking about planning ahead because a lot of the people that I work with and speak to, they want a baby like yesterday. So whatever we can do to fast track that. And my message is always the same. Like if you don't have those good health foundations in place, not only is it going to take longer, you think you're going to speed, shortcut the process by taking this or taking that. But again, if your body's not assimilating the nutrients of that, you're just, wasting your money for one. Because I find that people either over supplement or their body's not doing what they think it's doing by spending all of these hundreds of dollars on supplements.
Yeah.
Um, so I appreciate that so much. But I kind of do want to like a little bit touch about things that you see online because that is a big thing. I see it a lot. People are like, "Oh, Mary's sister's cousin did this and it worked for them, so that's what I'm doing." So I would love to just kind of talk about in your world, what is the worst gut health advice that you've seen on social media right now that just makes you cringe?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, you already touched on it, right? It's really just this whole idea that there is one solution for everyone's gut problem, which is so far from the truth. You guys, and I always explain it like this because this makes I like analogies. I think it's easy to learn that way, but you line up like 10 of your friends, right? You all look completely different externally, right? Like different skin color, different eye color, different hair color, different face shape, all different musculature and like body builds. We only differ in our genetics by what, like 1% or 0.5%. And that creates all that variety in external appearance. Imagine how different your internal physiology is from person to person. So that is a great way to kind of think about it too, is we have trillions of reactions going on in our body at any time. And yes, there are so many similarities with how our physiology works, but everyone is completely different. And there's still things that we're still learning in medicine. And I think that the problem with Western, society is that we've been so ingrained for what, the last 100 years to believe that, oh, if there's a disease that we can diagnose, there's one pill or treatment to fix it. And in reality, it's just one pill or treatment to mask the symptoms. They're not actually getting to the root cause. Like I talk about this so much on Instagram and I get so much hate for it in the comments, but I'll post something like, oh, IBS is a stupid diagnosis, or anything ending in itis is a stupid diagnosis because all it means is inflammation of something. Gastritis, inflammation of the stomach, um, like arthritis, inflammation of the joints. And my question is, what's causing the inflammation? And nobody ever asked that. Like they're not taught to think that way in medical school. It's all about diagnosis code, treatment, and that's all they can do. And that's why I never went to med school because most of the older doctors I shadowed were like, hey, honestly, if I were to do it again, I would not go to medical school because it's not what it used to be. The hospitals tell you how you have to treat patients. There is no practice of medicine anymore unless you want to open your own private practice. But then you're looking at maybe your mid 40s by the time you get to that point. And you've already spent 20 years of your life in the system, ingrained into it. And it's so sad. It's not the doctor's fault. It's just what they're taught in school. And, one of my childhood friends, she's an MD and she's awesome. And she's looking into more functional medicine stuff because she realized, like, hey, I don't want to just treat symptoms. I want to actually fix people and help them. And so I'll like randomly text her medical questions. She'll randomly text me like functional medicine questions. And it's so cool because I think that's where medicine is going, is just this integrative approach where, yes, like medicine excels in emergency trauma, like ERs, trauma medicine. I am not going to go to a chiropractor or an acupuncturist for that. Like, there's no way. But if it's something longevity or long-term health or actually fixing things before they become full-blown autoimmune disease or full-blown cancer or full-blown chronic metabolic issues, I'm going to go to a naturopath or a chiropractor or a functional medicine doctor or an acupuncturist first every single time. And so that's the biggest thing I see is, hey, if you're a human, you have parasites. Take this one parasite cleanse every day till the end of time. And I'm just like, and it's great because I get where people are coming from. They hit the jackpot. The first supplement they ever tried, or maybe it was the 10th one, completely got rid of all their symptoms. So they think, oh, this is going to help everyone. And I totally get where the heart is coming from with that. But it's not how humans work. It's not how our physiology works. Like you are a unique individual with different things going on, with different stress levels, different community, different faith, different, physical old injuries and medical histories and all that stuff. And so you've really got to work with someone who can take all that information, distill it down, create a really clear picture for you of what's going on, and help you get to your results faster. Because otherwise, you're, excuse me, because otherwise you're just going to waste a bunch of time and money trying to get there yourself.
Yes, I see that so often with people who come to me. And as someone who, I wanted to be a doctor my entire life. I used to read medical encyclopedias. Like I was all about it. I started off with biology pre-med major, ended up joining the military and going a completely different direction just to pay for school. And now I'm kind of glad that the way that it worked out that led me to more of a holistic approach and being able to help people. Of course, I keep having kids in my 40s, so I've always like, oh, I'd like to go back and, get my doctorate or whatever, but it's also like, well, what am I going to do with it that I'm not already doing? Um,
Exactly.
so that's kind of the thing, but I am very passionate about getting to the root, like we've talked about over and over again. And I know that there are a lot of women who are listening to this that are dealing with hormone imbalance, or maybe they've had fertility struggles, which we touched on earlier. I'd really like to just like blanket put it out there why gut health is so foundational for hormones and fertility. Because I will tell you, in all of the times I ever went to the doctor, whether it was migraines, digestive problems, or whatever, back in the day before when I used to go to the doctor, now I don't, but um, never once was I asked, how much water are you drinking? Like, what does your diet consist of? Even when so I had gestational diabetes with three of my four kids. So I'm 44, pregnant, and they like to label you as all sorts of things when you're that age and pregnant and give you all sort of diagnoses. And I had to see a diabetes counselor, which was a little bit annoying. She was great because I was like, I probably know more than you. I didn't go in there like that, but that's why I was annoyed by it. And she was great. She was like, "Oh, okay, great." But they hand me a handout and it's like, "Okay, when you go to McDonald's, order this." And I'm like, "Well, I haven't eaten at McDonald's in probably
Oh
20
my
years." So
God.
they're like, "If you go to Taco Bell, order this." Like I get, but that's kind of where the system is at. Like I get where it's
Wow.
like, well, if this is what you're eating, but how is that helping my diabetic situation? It's not,
Oh
you know,
goodness. Yeah.
which is it just irritates me that that's what's so wrong with the system. But going back to women who are dealing with hormone imbalance, it's just automatically like, let's put you on HRT or birth control or whatever without actually addressing how is your gut doing, you know, unless you go to a specialist and you believe in that, it's not as commonplace in Western medicine. So I would love for you to kind of, I know it's a lot there, but what are some things that gets overlooked most often when it comes to that, you know, hormone imbalance for women going into perimenopause? Like, why is the gut so important to that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's so many different, again, like the whole body works together. This whole device of let's split up the heart into cardiology, the brain into neurology, the GI tract into gastroenterology is just, it's bizarre because they all function together. You have the brain gut connection, you have the gut hormone connection. And so let me just break it down in the simplest way I can. But number one, you actually, if people don't know this about the gut, you have, all sorts of bacteria in your gut that help you produce nutrients, absorb nutrients, convert your thyroid hormone into the usable form. That happens in the gut as well. There's also a subset of bacteria in your gut called the estrobolome that actually regulates estrogen, progesterone, testosterone in your body. If you're constantly wiping out all these good bacteria that do all of these things and you're creating massive inflammation in the gut, it's going to affect your hormones indirectly because now we're not able to regulate those hormones as well. The other major organ I always look at with, infertility and hormone dysfunction is the liver. I see that on, every pregnant or person who's been trying to get pregnant that I've ever worked on, they all had liver issues. And that's where your hormones are broken down, recycled on a daily basis, especially estrogen. So, people who have a history of estrogenic cancers like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, all those things. If your liver isn't functioning at 100%, your estrogen slowly starts to rise over time in your body because most of it's supposed to be broken down and recycled and removed on a daily basis. And so that can create what's called estrogen dominance, which can also lead to infertility and, PCOS and, a lot of, really horrible periods and missed periods and all that stuff that you see with women who are struggling with their hormones, cystic acne as an adult when they never had acne as a teenager. Like that's something I see with a lot of people because there's that huge connection to the gut. And then you also have to think of the way that toxins get out of your body. Number one is the gut, then the gallbladder, then the liver. If your gut is struggling for a long period of time, all of that stress is going to be put on your liver because your liver is going to be trying to get all these toxins out. But if you have leaky gut and they're all slipping back into the bloodstream and going back through the liver to get, detoxed again, it's going to cause massive inflammation and that can create a ton of hormone issues as well. And then another way to look at it is 80% of your immune system lives in your gut. And so if you wreck your gut health, your immune system is not functioning well. And there's this thing in like recently that came out with a book called the neuroimmune endocrine axis. So it basically just means that your brain, your immune system, and your hormones all function together. If you wreck your immune system, if you wreck your gut health, it's going to affect your brain and it's going to affect your hormones. And so a lot of people just don't realize like there's so many things involved with hormones. It's not just one thing. So like I love how you said that earlier of, oh, what's the one supplement I can take to help me, get pregnant or to help balance my hormones? And I'm just like, well, I don't know what's making them unbalanced in the first place. Like you didn't give me enough information and it's not people's fault. They just don't, I think a lot of people just don't realize how complex our bodies are and how every system pretty much functions in unison. It's like this symphony in the body where if you are just focused on the violin, but you don't look at the cello or the flutes or flautist, I never know how to pronounce it. But if you don't look at them, the sound is always going to be off, and you're gonna be like, oh, something's a little bit off with this symphony because you're only looking at one thing. And I see that so much with gut health is people go to the GI doctor. All they do is look at their gut, endoscopy, colonoscopy. Oh, everything looks good. Your blood work shows your liver is healthy. And then I do testing and I'm like, okay, here's where your liver's messed up, your gallbladder's not working, and you have leaky gut, you have these infections that are breaking down your gut lining. And they look at me and they're like, why the heck didn't my doctor ever tell me this? And I'm like, it's not their fault. They're just not taught this. They're taught to look for disease, to look for tumors and cysts and visible things that you can see on imaging. And if it's not there, they just, they tell you it's in your head or you're stressed or, they just don't know. And so It really is like a complex thing, but those are probably the top things that come to mind for me in terms of gut health and hormones.
And it's so good. And I very similarly hear that. Like, why did my doctor tell me that? Because they'll say, "Oh yeah, all my stuff is normal," and I'll look at it
Yeah.
and I'm like, sis, you have adrenal fatigue. You've got this. You've got that. You're low in vitamin B. Your vitamin D is in the tank. Like all of these things, and but I'm taking vitamin B. Well, it's not. Your body's not assimilating it, so I
Yeah,
can't.
and your gut bacteria are the main thing that absorb and produce B vitamins in your body. I see so many people, same thing. Oh, like I'll like my testing will show nutrient deficiencies and they'll look at it and be like, "But I'm taking half of those." I'm like, "Yeah, because you can't absorb anything. Your
Mm-hmm.
liver and your gallbladder are messed up, so you can't digest your food properly or your supplements. And so you can't absorb them in the gut, and then your gut bacteria are wiped out. You've got leaky gut, parasites, fungus, whatever the case may be. And so you're literally just creating really expensive pee and really expensive poop. And that's what I tell people is like we've got to rebuild the foundation. We've got to heal your gut lining, restore that gut bacteria. And then all these other downstream things go away. Like people's acne goes away. They all of a sudden can get pregnant in their 40s and they're like, what the heck? Like I literally had one patient who it was the first pregnant person I ever worked on because I didn't deal with pregnancy. And she's like, well, let's just try it because she had been my chiropractic patient for a while. And I was like, okay, sure, let's try detoxing, see what happens. And because I knew a little bit about the connection, but I didn't really realize how profound it was. But she was 42 or 43 at the time. Her husband and her needed IVF twice to have their first kid when she was 40. A week after they both finished a detox that I put them on based on testing, not just blind approach, she immediately got pregnant at like 43. And she's got two healthy kids and they're thriving, doing amazing. And it's just so crazy to see all those changes. Like you see people, their mental health improves dramatically. Like people don't realize your gut bacteria produce dopamine and serotonin and it's stored in the gut. And so if you have gut issues, you're going to have mental health issues most of the time. And it's just wild like how many systems are really affected by the gut that people don't realize. And so then all these peripheral issues they had when they first started seeing you that had nothing to do with their main complaint, they're like, oh my God, my cavities went away, my kidney stones went away, my acne cleared up. One woman even wasn't didn't have to wear reading glasses anymore because her vision improved. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that could happen. But it's just wild, like when you really just start at the kind of like the base of your body, which is your gut, because it communicates with everything. And that's the main way that toxins and waste products get out of your body. It affects every single system in your body.
Man, so good. And it's so, I love how you mention just how incredible our bodies are and the way that God designed them, because it is true that it will adjust however it needs to keep going. And we don't even realize. I mean, I said this earlier that I didn't realize how bad I felt until I felt good. And I see that a lot with a lot of my clients come in and they're like, when I ask them about either their stress levels or whatever, and they kind of rate things high because that's their norm. But if you look at a different baseline, you're like feeling, I feel like a 7 or 8 is probably more like a 3 or 4 once you actually feel like you're supposed to feel. The whites of your eyes become whiter and all of those things. So I love all that. And I know that you mentioned your social media being a great source of information for people and maybe even triggering for some, but tell us how people can find you. I will say, when I changed the name of my podcast to Faith Over Pharma, I got my first 1-star review. And
Really?
I was like, yes, I pissed somebody off. Like I must be doing something right. Like they didn't even bother to comment on why they didn't like said podcast. It was just, give you 1 star when I had all 5 stars. So I like to rattle things a little bit. But anyways, tell us how we can find you and connect with you, because I also know that you obviously can help people. Maybe somebody is listening to this and they're struggling, and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Susan. It's been great chatting with you. And I love nerding out on this stuff. I think it's so fascinating. Like, I love the human body. I started in neurology. I used to treat a lot of head injuries. And so going from neuro to, gut health and realizing that they're both so interconnected is just so fascinating. And I'm still learning and still growing. And I just love it. So I love like talking to other practitioners who are also helping people and, love talking about this stuff because it's just so fascinating. But I actually loved the name of your podcast, by the way. That's actually why I reached out to you. I was like, I love that. Faith over pharma. That's good. Like I thought that was a great name. So, but yeah, I think you know what you're doing good in the world when you rattle people and when you start getting, the trolls on your social media pages. That's when you know you're like, okay, I'm getting somewhere. But yeah, so where to find me? So the easiest way for you guys, and I just want to say first, like, if you're listening to this episode thinking, I can't even imagine what it would be like to go to the bathroom once a day, or, to not feel 6 months pregnant after eating, or to be able to go to a potluck and eat whatever you want without suffering for days after. I've been there. I totally understand what you're going through, and I just want to encourage you to do one of two things. So number one, go follow me on Instagram. So again, my name is Dr. Kate Davis. So it's DrKateDavis. That's my Instagram handle at Dr. Kate Davis. And I post daily content on how to move the needle forward in the gut healing process. And you can start implementing these tools and tips on my page right away to start getting some relief. And number two is, if you've been struggling for a while and you haven't really found any help and you're just wanting to work with someone to really just help accelerate that process, I'm offering an exclusive discount, to work with me that's only available for those of you listening to this podcast. So if you go to my Instagram, again, it's at Dr. Kate Davis and DM me the number 100. I'll give you $100 off on an initial consult plus labs package. So you'll basically get the initial consult for free, and then we'll do labs to see exactly what's going on in your body. You'll get a full picture of what's creating the chronic gut issues that you're dealing with, which drainage pathways aren't functioning well, what infections and toxins are lurking in your body, and I'll put together an individualized detox and lifestyle care plan specifically suited to you so that you can finally heal and not end up in the ER in the process. So, because I've heard that from several people who, they detoxed, ended up in the ER, and it was not good. But so yeah, that's my goal, is to make sure you guys do it safely, because there is a way to heal. And so I just want to leave one last thing with you guys. I've seen so many people completely heal from all this stuff we just talked about, hormone issues, constipation, IBS, bloating, acid reflux. And a lot of them, were in the same boat as me, where they'd tried everything, diet, supplements, all the lifestyle stuff, vagus nerve regulation, calming down their nervous system, and nothing really fixed it. And I just want to tell you that, healing is absolutely possible, because I know there's a lot of you on here who have probably tried so many things, have lost hope. And I just want to let you know that, you're not stuck this way. I don't care what doctors have told you. I've seen so many people have complete transformations when we get to the root cause of what's creating their gut issues and heal at a foundational level. It doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've been dealing with the issues. I've worked with people in their 60s who got complete remission from IBS, and so don't ever give up on finding an answer. It's definitely out there.
Man, I really, really love that reminder, because my whole thing is that I think so often that we can get tied to the identity of our diagnosis. When it becomes part of who we are, it's hard to let that go. And so it is so important to have that belief that you can be healed and that your diagnosis isn't the end all, because it's hard to let it go if it's part of who you are. If you're in, the IBS Facebook groups and everybody's talking about it, or cancer, or whatever it is, infertility,
Yeah.
and you label yourself as that. Listen, God didn't label you as that. He made you perfect. He's giving us everything that we need to be whole and healed. And sometimes it's just finding the right person who's going to look at the big picture, who understands. The more I dive into even just the spiritual aspect of health, the more I'm convinced that that's the biggest piece that's missing
Yeah.
from, you go to the doctor and they just obviously want to give you a prescription for something, but like nobody is asking you any of those questions or understanding the part that God made us so perfectly, and that we
Yeah.
need to go in alignment with that. It was funny. I was just telling my 5-year-old daughter about that, because she's very healthy. She knows to prioritize protein over carbs, like never eat carbs naked kind of thing. That we have this, if she wants a treat, she's like, give me a meat stick first and
That's
all of this stuff.
awesome.
So, but we were talking about that and how, God made our bodies perfectly, and it's up to us to do our part to keep up with that. And she was lecturing some mom in the park the other day about giving her kids McDonald's, and I was like, oh my gosh, like a little
Oh, it's so
embarrassed, but
funny.
also very proud that she's not afraid to speak her mind, which, you know, maybe more people need to hear the truth, I guess. That's part of what I hope to accomplish in this podcast, which is completely against like my personality because I don't like to offend anyone. But the truth needs to be told. You are perfect. You are designed to be well. It's already done. You
Hmm.
just need the steps to get there from the earth. So, thank
Yeah,
you
it's good.
so much for that and all of your amazing, amazing wisdom. And before we jump off, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Maybe somebody who's listening and really struggling that you want
Yeah,
to say
well,
to them?
I mean, I love what you said about not identifying with your illness. Like when people tell me like, "Oh, my IBS is acting up." I'm like, "No, no. You're not gonna that's not your identity. We're not gonna do that." And it's like obviously you do it in a gentle way because, people have been dealing with it for what, 30 years. It's like you want to have a delicate approach around it, but just really telling people the power of your mind. And there's so much research backing it up. It's not just woo-woo, it's not just a Christian thing. There's so much research around believing that healing is possible and actually seeing it come to fruition. And I love that you brought that up because it's such a big thing that I have to talk to my patients about is like, hey, I know you've had this for a long time, but it doesn't have to be who you are. It's not who you are. This is who I see you are like as a person. And I think that's really hard for people. But another thing that I think people don't think about is community, which is another biblical based thing, right? Is like, God wants us to break bread with people and be in community. And I started asking my patients recently, like, do you have a friend who you can just call and talk to about anything? Like real problems, not just, someone to have fun with or go to events with, but someone you can really, really say, hey, I'm really struggling. This is what's going on, and they can be there for you. Because I feel like a lot of people don't have that. And when you're not in community and and you're in isolation and you feel like you don't have anyone you can talk to, that also is a huge thing that really, really wrecks your health. And so that's something that's really kind of important is, make sure you're in community. I know it's hard if you're a mom and you have kids and, it's hard to do that, but just invite your friends over to your house. It doesn't care, like they don't care that your house is messy. You don't have to clean up, you don't have to host them. Just be like, "Hey, do you want to come live in my mess with my children and just come hang out and have some coffee in between them interrupting us every 5 minutes?" So, and if they're a real friend, they'll do it. They'll come over. Like I have a lot of married friends with kids and I'll go hang out with them and their children. I don't care. I'm like, "No, I just want to be around you." So I think the community piece is really important that a lot of people don't talk about.
Man, that's so good because it is crazy and there's plenty of studies to back this up and people probably have seen this since the advent of social media. It's like you have more connection to other people and yet people feel more alone than they ever have. And so I think
Yep.
that's very important. It's also one of the biggest reasons why I'm very passionate about I host retreats in Costa Rica every year, and that is a big part of it is having that community, having downtime when you're not having you know, there's all these things that we say, oh, when life slows down, I'll focus on this or I'll do that or whatever. And gosh, I've even had people on my retreats who hardcore detoxed from all the delicious organic food that we have
Yeah.
available. And yet she's come back twice more since then. So, like, even though she was sick the whole first time, which is why I like to work with people before they come on said retreat.
Yeah.
'Cause I want you to enjoy it. But it was, kind of that record scratch getting in the community, getting away from all the naysayers that say whatever, that instill fear into us over our diagnosis or I mean that's a big thing that I see a lot of times is people they're told you've got this and then the fear just eats them up. And so
Yeah.
it's so important to surround yourself with people who are not going to feed the fear
Hmm.
and who are going to help you heal and live your best life. So I appreciate all of that so, so much. We'll have to do this again because it was so, so great. I
Yeah.
appreciate you so much.
Yeah, I love chatting with you, Susan. You're awesome.
And I'll make sure all the ways to connect with you and the promo codes and all of that's in the show notes. But thank you so, so much for taking the time and being here and just helping people with something that I don't know. I'm in the holistic space and I still don't feel like it's talked about nearly as much as it should be as far as the
Yeah.
importance that it has on our overall health. So thank you for doing
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Susan. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Faith Over Pharma. If this helped cut through the noise, share it with a friend who always asks, do you think this actually works? And if you're ready to go deeper through immersive retreats, phototherapy, or the Rooted Reset, you'll find your next steps at susangladstein.com.
Thanks for listening.